We interrupt our regularly scheduled program to bring you this emergency PSA. From across the globe, we're getting reports of men and women falling victim to the evil clutches of QAnon and their army of red pills. Has your Uncle Bill been spending hours watching suspicious YouTube videos? Maybe your Aunt Kathy started referring to COVID as the China virus. Maybe she claims COVID isn't even real. Can anything be done to help these poor souls? Find out on this week's episode of Sheeple's Army.
Greetings. Here we are, Sheeple's Army, doing episode 3. Back at it again.
Week 3.
That's right. My name's Tyler.
I'm Justin.
And I'm TJ.
And guys, I'm not going to do one of my stupid little intro things this week. We're just going to get right into it. And we're actually recording live from 2 different newly designating newly designated anarchist jurisdictions, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington.
Hell yeah. The autonomous Republic of Seattle.
It's pretty awesome. They seized power. Yeah. And it's going really well here. It's very cooperative.
Highly cooperative.
Does that actually mean anything besides like...
It means it's anarchist, bro.
It means we work together, TJ.
Yeah.
I'm not an anarchist.
I don't work together.
Let the record show.
Yeah.
So this episode, we're gonna be mainly focusing on QAnon, but we are gonna start off with a little bit of kind of news that came out today, right?
Yeah. I mean, other than the anarchist jurisdiction thing.
No, that was your cue, Justin.
Oh my God!
We just did it, you know.
Did you want to go more in depth on that or no?
Yeah,
I was trying to give Justin his cue to
I know what
the
cue was.
Here it is. I'm taking it. I'm taking the cue. So today, the Justice Department designated 3 cities, anarchist jurisdictions: Seattle, Portland, and New York City as well.
That's right.
Basically, this is in response to Trump issuing an executive order pretty much calling for the Department of Justice to do this within 30 days. And the criteria that were set out for what makes an anarchist jurisdiction were cuts to police budgets, or like creating a hostile environment for police, and permitting anarchy and anarchists and lawlessness in your streets. So glad to know that that happened in Seattle while I wasn't fucking paying attention.
Snowflakes. I don't understand.
Yeah, like I think they cut the police budget like 2%, which is less than they cut the transportation budget.
It's like absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But does that actually, what does that mean for us, like in real time? Not just like getting like right wing dudes hard on Twitter.
It doesn't mean anything. That's the entire purpose of it. But it's supposedly like the idea is that it's going to be a way for Trump to restrict funding to Democratic cities who, quote unquote, refuse to crack down on violent protesters and anarchists. But it's going to get challenged in court immediately if they try to restrict any funding. So it's not actually going to go into effect. So it's like I 100% to stoke the base before the election.
Definitely. Yeah, it's
just to keep people tantalized.
Exactly.
I am tantalized for one.
Yeah, they're doing their law and order thing that they do, right?
Yeah, and Joe Biden is trying to do it, but he's just not going to be as good, you know?
No, he can't do it like they can.
But he is Mr. Law and Order, but
just gotta give him a shot in the ass.
God. I do love how as soon as the law and order thing comes up, then all the sort of, states' rights and respecting local jurisdictions stuff kind of just goes right out the window.
Definitely.
That is always fun to see. And yeah, so they're kind of going at the defund the police movement, right? Because they're basically saying that local sort of jurisdictions don't get to be autonomous in terms of, you know, deciding what they want to do with their budgets, right? That was part of the criteria for the memo that Trump requested, or for the Attorney General to look at for those cities that have things like defund the police, right?
Definitely. Yeah. It's really just more of an ethos about these cities, I think. Just like the general idea of democratic cities, like just like
wait, they're not democratic cities, they're Democrat cities.
Yeah, Democrat cities. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly it, right? They're just trying to like portray it as, you know, like they're trying to rile out the base, right? They're like New York, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, like what stands in for like millennials or like entitled Democrat, or
all they're missing is San Francisco, and it would be like
exactly.
You know. And it would be nice to hear from Biden on this. I haven't seen anything, but I'm not hopeful, right?
No, Biden said that anarchists need to be arrested and prosecuted.
That's right.
Yeah,
he did say that. Christ. So let's get into what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about QAnon, right, guys?
Yeah, QAnon. So for anybody that doesn't know, QAnon is a right-wing conspiracy theory that alleges that there's a group of liberal Satan-worshipping pedophiles, the elite, quote-unquote elite cabal, and they run a global sex trafficking ring. And basically, the only person in the world that fights against them is Donald Trump. And he uses an informant who is named quote-unquote Q to give information about this to the public, and that eventually there will be some sort of day of reckoning where Donald Trump rounds up all of these pedophiles and journalists and all of these people and jails them or executes them. That's what they're hoping for.
Right.
And that's like QAnon in a nutshell.
Not totally confirmed with this. Y'all can let me know if this is accurate, but I heard that they found out that it was the founder of 8chan. Is that right?
That actually is true.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what everyone is saying.
Totally. That's like what broke in the news. Which, if true, would be like truly absolutely wild.
It's probably true.
Right?
I would say like 99% true.
It's like not Jeff Sessions. There's absolutely no like chance anyone in the Trump administration is savvy enough to actually pull that off.
No way. Yeah. One of my favorite things about QAnon is like how totally like completely partisan it is, right? It's all like elite Democrats, right? It's not like it's not like Roy Moore, obviously, like a pedophile Republican, obviously, like wouldn't be involved in QAnon.
No, it doesn't.
Right?
Doesn't.
You know what I mean?
That's just the liberal media telling you lies to
right.
distract you from the fact that all your children are being taken
by Democrats.
Yeah. I think one of the weirdest aspects of the whole QAnon conspiracy is that the savior in this point of view is a child molester.
That's the best part. That's totally the best part. He's the only one that's brave enough to take on like the deep state plot, It's so awesome. And even like at that press conference like a few weeks ago now, where he was like given a pretty good opportunity to kind of disavow all that stuff, and he was just like, no, it's that would be, what would be wrong with that? What would be wrong with me stopping the evil elite cabal? What would be wrong with that?
Oh my god.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, he knows those people are just going to eat that shit up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Any slight nod of approval, like that's what they'd fucking do it for,
And like they seem, because they have recently, because it basically started out like just on like the internet, like chat rooms and things like that, but it progressed to like Facebook and Twitter mainly. now they're having like protests.
Right.
And,
It's
like,
coming offline, right?
yeah, it's coming offline. And
Yeah.
like if you just look at them, they have like the Save the Children hashtag
Yeah.
like on their shirts. If you look
Mhm.
at them just from afar, not knowing, it seems like it's a pretty reasonable thing.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Save
And then it just goes down hard.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%. I think two really important like points here is one, that like interest in QAnon and QAnon activity on Twitter was increased by 150% in March, like at the start of the pandemic. So the pandemic, in large part, is like helping to fuel anxiety among people who are like then turning to QAnon.
Mhm. And then, of course,
and
then of course it makes sense that QAnon becomes tangential with all the kind of the COVID conspiracies that were, gaining traction at that exact time, right?
They think it's like a deep state plot to damage Trump's chance at getting elected again. Is the basis?
It's in the same sort of like conspiracy theory networks, right? Like, but like to that point that you were talking about, TJ, like one thing that I think is like a big reason why people are flocking to QAnon specifically is because of that like veneer of like respectability of kind of talking about like we have to stop child like sex trafficking.
Totally.
Oh yeah,
which, like,
it's such a great ploy.
It is, right? It is, and in part because like that like area has been seeded like in the public discourse, right? Like we have like so like people doing rape apology for Biden, for Trump, for Bill Clinton,
for everybody,
for like literally like like so many like prominent people like Prince Andrew.
Oh yeah.
It's like how allegedly
he's a really old one.
Do I have to say that? Yeah. Yeah, he's the old guy.
Yeah, he definitely tasted flesh, honestly. That's kind of okay. So here's the thing. I know this is like maybe I'm being red pilled a little bit after.
You might be red pilled.
And if you don't know, Tyler, can you explain just what red pilling is?
Well, so red pilling, to me, it's like generally a kind of an alt-right meme, I think. But with QAnon, I didn't even know this before kind of looking into QAnon, that's how they describe sort of bringing people into the movement, right? Once you kind of accept a lot of the general kind of QAnon premises, you're red pilled, right?
I think that's a Matrix reference.
It's definitely a Matrix reference.
It is,
but they use the same term, red pill.
Yeah.
No, they do. It's like it's taking the red pill.
Yeah, I was watching like a video where this girl was like kind of like very happily talking about how more and more people are getting red pilled, and she was like a QAnon girl.
And I think I took like maybe like half a red pill, because I honestly believe that the royal family like feasts on blood and like flesh of humans.
I've taken half of the red pill myself. Yeah, totally.
Like. So here's a fun fact, is that like Europeans would, like rich Europeans and like rich Americans, they would pay for mummies from Egypt and then like grind them into powders and shit and like use them in medicines and like eat them. So like,
totally,
that's extremely
people definitely
white.
eat people. Yeah,
that sounds awful.
Definitely. Yeah, it's truly nauseating. Yeah,
but, yeah. Sorry, Tyler, go.
Yeah, and more in terms of coming offline. I mean, a couple examples. We've got QAnon supporter. Her name's Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she just won her primary, and she's likely to be elected to represent Georgia's 14th district in November. So there's going to be some representation in Congress, right?
Yeah. So I actually I have a little bit of more information about Marjorie Taylor Greene. So she, like Tyler said, she's from Georgia's 14th district, which is Northwest Georgia. It's a solidly Republican area. I have a quote from her campaign page here, which I think gives a nice idea of what she's about. She is extremely pilled. Yeah, highly pilled, I would say. So this is under the banner "Save America, Stop Socialism." "Quote unquote Democratic socialists are fighting tooth and nail for a hostile takeover of our healthcare and so much more. Radical socialists want Americans on the same government-run healthcare plan with welfare recipients and illegal immigrants. So
Yeah.
Sounds like a very nice lady.
Truly not great. Not great. Yeah, so in addition to like believing in this like truly insane Q like pseudo religious conspiracy shit, she also holds those abhorrent views.
Totally.
There are 11 total congressional candidates that have expressed some amount of support for QAnon, or like expressed support and then quickly tried to like walk it back and
That
stuff.
seems like so much. That's so many.
It's
way too many.
It's a lot, yeah. If they all get in,
one I could be okay with, like just to like throw like a little wild card in there,
like
Right.
one freak, yeah.
That's fine. But like, what is it, 11?
There's a congressman in 11. I think there are probably more, but like there's a congressman in Eastern Washington who is trying to get Eastern Washington to secede, and with Idaho form state of Jefferson.
Dude, that is
There's
so
some
fucked.
weird fucking people out here.
He's not a QAnon guy, though, is he?
I mean, probably.
It sounds like he's been built.
So. Like, dude has definitely been built. Another notable congressional candidate is Lauren Boebert.
Oh, okay.
Kind of a great name, but she's from the Colorado 3rd, which is the entire western half of Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
She won her primary, and she said in May that she hopes QAnon is real because it only means America is getting stronger and better and people are returning to conservative values.
She hopes it's real. She hopes that there's a secret cabal of that are stealing and raping and sacrificing children. She
For
hopes
that sweet adrenochrome.
Oh man, and
she probably also like hates Planned Parenthood because they murder children.
Definitely. Without a doubt, she does. Yeah.
Dude, that's also like QAnon is like adjacent to like they always wear those like Pizzagate shirts and like
right,
which is like, well, it's like the idea that the Clintons own like pizza chains that they're like trafficking children from.
Right, and that culminated in violence, right? And that was what I was going to say too. It's like so we've got some representation in Congress, and then it's also coming offline in terms of violence now, right? Or at least it did. And I mean, people have been at least kind of speculating that if Biden wins, there could definitely be kind of an uptick in QAnon-related violence.
Like a QAnon militia.
Course.
Yeah, I could see
I would
it.
definitely expect that.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because
I think that one notable QAnon supporter that we should talk about is running for Senate in Oregon as well. Have you heard about her? Yeah, she won her Republican primary, Jo Ray Perkins.
This is becoming way too common.
Yeah. I actually haven't heard about that.
Yeah, no, she's challenging Jeff Merkley, and she's going to be on the ballot in November.
Okay.
And
at least she's going to lose, though, at least.
She's definitely, absolutely going to lose. But she recorded a video and then like posted it on her Twitter page of her reciting the fucking QAnon pledge.
Oh my god!
Absolutely terrifying.
Where we go one, we go all. Right?
Yeah, it's like hand on the Bible. I pledge to be a soldier of the like fucking light or something.
These people are fucking batshit crazy.
I mean, they are absolutely. But like, who else is talking about child sex trafficking? Like that shit really freaks people out, you know?
Oh, it does, and it's also kind of one of those things where, like, kind of what we were talking about before is like you almost feel like a dick for being like against it, or it's like I said, it's like a really easy ploy to like get people behind you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think this is actually a common ploy used by a lot of organizations, unfortunately. Yeah. I was briefly employed by a place in Seattle that claimed to be an anti-slavery organization, but was actually just an anti-sex work organization. They like preached a like personal responsibility approach to ending sex trafficking. It was pretty much what they were saying was that like in order to stop sex trafficking, you need to like challenge your own assumptions about like sexism, which like, yeah, people definitely need to challenge their own assumptions about sexism, but It's very similar to like an approach to tackling climate change, which is just like replacing your light bulbs.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Like
The conservative kind of personal responsibility approach.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
It pretended to be like an anti-slavery organization, but it was really just about like personal responsibility.
Right.
It's like super weird.
Which not going to be enough if you want to address serious problems with sex trafficking, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like huge systemic issues.
Definitely.
But it's like religious people talk about that shit, and like QAnon people talk about that shit. So like people who are concerned about that, they just like gravitate towards one of those things a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to talk about how we think people fall into this black hole of being radicalized and red-pilled and all that.
Yeah.
But before that, we should definitely mention a big part of what, you know, QAnon believes is that they are siphoning. What is the word?
Adrenochrome.
Adrenochromes.
Adrenochrome.
And what is that exactly?
It's
life force.
So adrenochrome, I believe, Tyler, you can let me know if this is accurate.
No, I'm sure you've got
it. But I believe that it in the QAnon canon, it is it is like a substance that is emitted from scared children.
Mm-hmm.
You can extract from scared children.
And that's basically the plot of Monsters, Inc. So I like to think that, you know, there's some sort of like, well, I don't like to think, but in my head, there's a factory, and all of these people are dressed up as Monsters, Inc. characters. And they were just one big Monsters, Inc. cosplay.
They're just harvesting like children's screams. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not like letting them go. They're like putting them back.
They're free range children.
Is that scientifically proven? Adrenochromes? Is that like on the periodic table?
It's actually the building block of all life.
Yeah.
No, it's just like it's something like it exists. You can buy it for like $50, like a liter.
You can buy it.
It's I can get you adrenochrome.
I would like to maybe we do like a product like unboxing of adrenochromes.
Yeah, maybe we do.
I don't know what we do with it though. Like, are we gonna get on a list if we're buying adrenochrome?
Yeah, probably.
I bet Alex Jones probably sells like adrenochrome like detector glasses or something.
Dude, he's probably like rolled it out. I don't know.
Where you could just like spot, you just like put the glasses on and you can spot like elite Democrat pedophiles from like a mile away.
It's like the They Live movie. Have you ever seen that?
The what?
It's like They Live. Have you ever seen that movie?
I have not.
Oh, dude, it's a great like shitty 80s movie, but basically like the world is taken over by these like aliens that control everything.
Tight.
And this guy, he gets these glasses, and when he puts them on, he sees like their actual faces and like all of these advertisements. That's where like Obey got his logo from, because in one of it he like puts them on and there's a big poster that's like an advertisement, but when he puts his glasses on, it just says like Obey, and like these aliens are sending subliminal message to us to like control us.
Nice.
But it's like those, but like with like elite cabal.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I have my pair on.
Yeah.
You put them on and everybody kind of looks like what the prince looks like, just normally.
Oh my God. Jesus. Yeah, and it keeps them from aging, right, Justin, TJ?
I think that's what the point is. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that's exactly right. I think when Hillary Clinton like collapsed briefly or like tripped or something, well, the whole like mythos around that was that she had run low on adrenochrome and needed to go get more stat before she died.
I think that's also what they inject into Biden before he goes and does the debate as well.
Yeah, they're gonna do an adrenochrome test on them.
Honestly,
Trump said he would get one too. He said he would take the test.
Honestly,
so.
Trump probably has at least one in the drafts, in the tweet drafts, where he says like Biden's adrenochrome must be running low.
Oh yeah, he's just waiting to let that fly.
Yeah, definitely. And one of his aides was like, "No, you can't do it." And he's like, "Well, maybe I will."
I think definitely, like without a fucking doubt.
He's like, this will secure the election, and maybe it would.
It might.
It's like almost kind of like you know, there's like the big red button underneath the glass
Yeah,
like, for a nuclear bomb, but it's like send tweet about adrenochromes.
Yeah, it's like all these like fanatical like QAnon tweets. Just like,
Yeah, oh,
You need,
for
like, two people
sure.
with keys separately to like open the case.
oh my god, wow, the nuclear football.
I think that about the like drug testing before the debate, like I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that like Trump would find some way to cheat on that. Even he dudes on amphetamines a lot of the time, I think, but like also like doesn't that just sound like a setup that you would see on like reality TV or something?
Totally, yeah, or even like fucking like some like House of Cards bullshit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like he slips the guy like $1,000.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into why and how people kind of fall into this belief system, because that's it's just like a belief system.
Yeah.
It's actually batshit crazy. I think one thing to like point out is like these people are very welcoming, and like really like willing to engage with people online and kind of like bring them into this. Like they think that they're doing people a favor by like exposing this fake thing that they believe is real.
Totally.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that there are a couple like things about it that are really attractive. One, like any sort of cult or sort of like cult-like religious following, there's a real focus on acceptance, right? People who like might feel like they haven't been accepted in other areas of their life, or who like feel like they've been like misunderstood or mistreated, right? Like they can really gravitate towards that. They can latch onto that. That's something. QAnon, like you were saying, Tyler, specifically has like the added benefit of like you're doing something good for the world. So it's like really purpose driven.
And also I feel like people, I mean, I think me and Tyler have had this conversation separately, but people on like the left, especially when talking about politics, like they tend to use the phrase like, it's not my job to teach you, or
Totally.
you know,
yeah.
And I think that like while that is like valid in some instances, it really like if someone is like trying to learn, or like, you know, someone maybe doesn't come at a conversation with like exactly how they should, they can be shunned, and then it's really easy to just go straight hard the other way.
Yeah, if you
Definitely.
if you want people to, if you are like really believe in something and you want other people to believe in it, it's you do kind of have to be willing to talk to them about it, and talk to them in a way that's not in a way that's not like sort of demeaning them, right? I mean, like I think like broadly on the left, we do have to be accepting of like anybody who's like down for the cause, right? Or is potentially,
Definitely.
you know what I mean? Or otherwise,
like is willing to learn.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Because
for sure.
otherwise, just exactly like you said, TJ. I mean, it's easy for them to get funneled into this like 4chan or whatever 8chan like QAnon stuff. You know.
I mean, that's definitely really, really true. I think that like one like caveat that I will like add to this is that I think that like it's not my job to educate you, like quote unquote, like applies to people of color who don't feel like explaining to ignorant white people like why, you know, certain things like are important to them or upset them, or like what the history is about something. I think those are the legitimate uses of that phrase are in that situation, and I don't really think that there's a place for like white people, I think in general, to be like saying shit like that, unless it is like, you know, unless it's like a trans person who like doesn't feel like educating somebody about trans issues or something.
Totally. I guess like what I think
like,
of what I think of is like
yeah,
I've seen a lot of people on like Facebook and shit, and like I'm talking about like white people that are like they're posting they'll post stuff about Trump and how he's the worst and stuff like that, and it's like I totally agree with this like sentiment, but they'll do a long post where they're basically saying like, if you vote for Trump or if you voted for Trump, like unfriend me, I'm not talking to you, like we're done. You know what I mean? And like that's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, you're the one who can actually talk to those people, right? The people that
yeah, like that, those are literally the people that you should be talking to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so
that's a good point.
And so being that there's like a lot of overlap with this like QAnon and Trump people, I mean, it's basically the same people, right? When it comes to something like this, it's like you can't just like dismiss people and say that like, oh well, this person believes in this, so I'm just not, I'm done with them. You know,
There's
it's
a
not.
nuance to these things.
Yeah.
What'd you say, TJ?
I said there's a nuance to these sort of
No.
conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I got you, definitely. I definitely appreciate that. I think like one thing that I don't know, I just don't think necessarily that engaging in discourse with people who believe in QAnon about QAnon on the internet is probably like that.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that's like, I mean, I feel like personally
useful,
that's like
you
too
know?
far gone. Like,
Yeah, exactly. At a certain point, I'm down to just cut and run and then like use your time for something more effective.
me
But
and
like,
Tyler kind of know someone that
Yeah,
went down that path, and I think is at that level.
he is. Yeah, and I mean he believes in like the Bill Gates, like I think his kind of in with this was the COVID conspiracies. And so he believes that like Bill Gates is trying, and like Dr. Fauci are like collaborating to give everybody like a mind control vaccine or something. I don't know.
Dr. Fauci would be the worst fucking like super villain. Like, who would pick Dr. Fauci?
I remember, we'll keep his name like secret,
Yeah.
but there was at one point where there was a comparison between Dr. Fauci and Dr. Mangala.
Yes.
Which is like, if you've actually studied World War II at all, you know like how mind-blowingly like bonkers that is.
Yeah, and Nazi doctors would actually be heavily in favor of a virus that disproportionately affects like marginalized and like like groups, right?
Yeah.
Because which is what COVID.
As would many American doctors of the time.
Sure, yeah, totally. But it's and I think like with this this online kind of like discourse stuff and like fighting, I see what you're saying, Justin, because like I definitely feel like talking to someone online, especially if it's like on a public, like if it's like in the comment section or like on like a Twitter thread, useless. Never gonna. I mean, if you want to put someone on blast publicly for something dumb and you feel like you're exposing that, that's one thing, I guess. But like some person that has like 50 followers and just like is kind of like has been for whatever reason, you know, red pilled. Honestly, sending them like a direct message, or like if they're your friend, call them, you know, like that is going to be a lot more effective than doing this online sort of just like everybody wants to
talk to them in person.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
them.
instead of just like owning them, you know what I mean? Because that's what a lot of people want to do. Yeah, totally. It's not.
It's like if it's somebody that you know personally, like it's like I don't know. I try to have conversations on Facebook. I think that like that is a fine platform if you are intending to have like good faith conversations. If you're not having good faith conversations, I think it becomes pretty clear.
Sure.
I definitely have had like a lot of interactions with people on Twitter, and like you can tell when people are just like red pilled chuds or like being shitty or whatever. But like just like every once in a while you find someone who's legitimately curious and then like send them a link, and then if they read the link then cool, then they're actually interested, and if they don't read the link then you know they're not actually interested in learning anything, and then just drop it.
Yeah. I think a big problem with this too, as far as like QAnon and like these people that have access to the internet and like, you know, can basically like, I think in general also, like if you believe something, you can find it online.
Definitely.
Like no matter what it is,
yeah.
you can find some sort of, even if it's like fucking crazy, you can find someone else or some YouTube video or some Reddit thread about why that's real. And that just spirals into like all of these other things that just tumble together to make, I mean, like, you know, QAnon basically, or like this crazy ass belief system.
Yeah. And
I think that, sorry, Tyler, you can go.
Okay. I mean, it's all related too, right? That's kind of, I know we've had this conversation separately, but that friend who we were kind of referring to, he accepted the COVID stuff, the COVID conspiracy stuff. And with that, the implication is, of course, that like the deep state is trying to, you know, conspire against Trump. Right. So this kid, where this kid wasn't a Trump supporter before, now he's kind of like, oh, well, like they're trying to stop him.
Bordering.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's literally like he's posting memes from like Turning Point USA and like stuff about how
That's so sad.
Yeah, no, seriously, and like a lot of stuff about like, you know, Marxism being the worst thing ever, and like Black Lives Matter. He's like against the protest movements now too. because it's just like
That's
one thing.
fascist sign.
Yeah, it's just like
for
one thing
sure.
led to another, right? I mean, there's like each sort, once you accept each premise, there's like a different implication, right? So
And there's always something that you can send to someone that proves like why you're right.
totally, yeah,
Yeah, for sure. I think a big part of this like kind of comes back to like a lack of. I think it comes back to two things. I think one is kind of like a crisis of faith. I think that like in a lot of ways we can talk about conspiracy theories like in this way is kind of filling a void left by religion.
totally.
Oh, sure.
And I know like since my parents' lifetime, like even since my lifetime, the like number of people who go to church like has like completely plummeted.
Yeah, and with
oh,
that kind of like a certain amount of like social capital goes away and like social bonds,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like we're missing that now. Yeah, totally.
Like the people are like grandparents, you know, were like grew up in a time of like very very strong connection to church in a lot of ways, right? That was like a guiding principle for them. And when you take the same sort of way of life and you take out that bond to church, you're just kind of left with like a void. I think
Totally.
Yeah, people are just going to latch on to whatever they can, whatever makes them feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like we're expected to have this like Protestant work ethic, right? We're expected to work like we're excited to die,
Mm-hmm.
and like you know, people. What are you gonna do with that, right? How do you reconcile that with like the feeling like that's a truly terrible way to live, right? You have to find like some way of like externalizing, like you know, your like what you're like feeling and thinking, right? And like desensitizing yourself to that so that you can do what you need to do to make money to survive.
It's a dangerous hill to fall down.
Definitely, yeah.
Definitely.
So I mean, it's like, yeah, obviously, primarily, I would say that red pilling happens online to people, right? That's how this.
Yeah,
that's
definitely
how this happens.
Mostly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it plays on. It's you know mostly white men, I imagine, right? Like I think that like it plays on like a lot of expectations that men are taught to have about like the world being like made for them or like
Sure.
them being
Yeah.
entitled to the world or whatever they want in the world.
That's a good point. And
I
like,
would like to know the percentage of like self-identifying like incels that are also like pilled.
yeah.
I need a flow chart.
And I was just gonna say too, like, and expectations for men to like protect children, right? And I mean, there's a lot,
totally.
and there's a lot of
There's loads of women that are pilled.
That's what I was.
To be fair.
That's what I was. No, that's what I was just gonna say. Yeah, and there's a lot of like women who are involved in this too, and like same thing. I mean, this thing where you kind of protect children, and that was like we were talking about earlier with the hashtag. That was why this was so like it was kind of scary because they appropriated this like really well-meaning hashtag that I think is also actually used in like the NGO like anti-sex trafficking organization world, right? Like save the children. Like it's a very like, oh yeah, totally, I agree with that, right?
Definitely. So I actually have a personal connection to that because I worked on a farm in Thailand where like they hosted missionaries from the US who were like 18 years old, and they would come over like after high school and they would like go to bars around the city and like try to convince sex workers to give up the life of sex work and like come to this like compound where they could receive job training. It's like super weird world, and it's like all run by the church, you know, all like Baptist ministries.
So I kind of wanted to get into like so actually a perfect thing would be, Justin, what was that quote from the you said it was, I think the primary challenger or the challenger to Jeff Merkley in Oregon?
Oh, okay. So I read a quote from Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia about stopping socialism.
Right. And wasn't there another one too that was about like America being in they hope that it's true because
that was from Lauren Boebert in Colorado.
And what was that one?
Boebert said, this is from an Axios article, Boebert said in May she hopes QAnon, quote, is real because it only means America is getting stronger and better and people are returning to conservative values, end quote, which she supports.
What does that even mean? Like,
Totally.
I think what she actually means to say is that, like, she hopes that it's real because there's, like, potentially a lot of people trying to do what's quote unquote right here, right? That's the only thing that I can assume she actually means.
So I think that, like, definitely that is, like, an important aspect, TJ, but I think, like, what we're seeing here is just kind of in the vague gesturing, right? It's like an embrace of what QAnon stands for here, and, like, what does QAnon stand for? For her, it stands for conservative values, right?
Yeah, and like Donald
Like,
Trump being like a
supposedly.
savior.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's, quote unquote conservative values, right? It's like, oh, she said she's doing it for conservative values, whatever the fuck that means. Other people say they're doing it to save the children.
Right.
Like, what part of this does either one of those things?
Totally. And I guess for me, so like I always kind of felt with like QAnon and like similar conspiracies, like these, what they serve to do really is like muddy the waters around how power actually functions in our country. And like, because this is a conspiracy about the elite, right? Okay, so you're looking at power, that's good, but then everything after that becomes like with this. Although it's not helpful that there are actually like examples of kind of elite, sex trafficking rings, like Jeffrey Epstein being the most obvious one in recent history, right? And it doesn't help that like a lot of the, Bill Clinton potentially, he's on those flight logs, right?
He is,
and
like,
ironically, Donald Trump is was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein as well, right?
Dude, I brought that up to so many people, and they're always just like, well, he was just like at the same parties, but like they weren't like friends.
Right, totally. And
what the? They were at the same like sex parties, like.
There's always an excuse of like why it was okay that Trump was there.
So, but what I was gonna, and not to refer to this friend that I have too many times, but when I was having this conversation with him about the COVID stuff, I basically told him, I was like, dude, so he's telling me that like, what? So you think that Bill Gates is like a good guy and stuff? And I said, no, dude, he has way too much money. His wealth needs to be like redistributed. Nobody should have that much money because it affords way too much power and like it doesn't really allow any sort of like democracy to properly function, right? But if I were Bill Gates, I would much rather have you be worried about all this like COVID conspiracy mind control bullshit than actually like kind of organizing to figure out how you would create a system where I don't get to have this much wealth and power and influence, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that is such a good point, Tyler. And like, I'll just hop in real quick here just to say that like, what drives people to these conspiracy theories, right? Like what drives them to believe these crazy things, like are not crazy impulses.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
No, it's like basic like human desires or needs.
Yeah.
Thoughts.
Right. It's like, oh, like this is like deeply fucked up. Like, why is this happening?
Yes.
Right. Like that, like question, if like the first person that reaches out is a right-wing nut job, right, is a QAnon person, right, that might be what you go with.
Totally. And that's like, and that kind of goes back to why we need to be sure not to be too exclusive about things. Like we invite everybody, even, I mean, like, I'm even going to say like, even people who voted for Trump, like they do matter too. We need them. If for a broader left, like we need them, period.
So I totally respect that perspective. I would say I have a different perspective.
Well, yeah, and okay, go ahead, because
which is fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Like, I'm sure that like also like you like have additional thoughts about
totally,
it, right?
Yeah, because I was gonna say we don't. I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me just say like we don't concede on any of the like racism or any of the sexism or on any of the culture war stuff. I'm not saying we concede on that. What I am saying though is that like be willing to have a conversation with these people that doesn't result in you just fucking canceling them, because what are you actually doing when you do that? You're just trying to show how fucking woke you are. Like if you really want things to change, like we need to bring these people over, and like and even as like white people, kind of like we were talking about earlier, as a white person myself, it's like, yeah, no, I do need to be willing to talk to white Trump supporters who voted for Trump for a variety of reasons.
Bingo.
For a lot of people it was the racism. For a lot of people it was also that he actually did make promises that where he said that he was going to improve people's lives. We know it was bullshit, but he did it. He at least said it, and that's part of the thing, right? That's what Hillary said. Things were going to stay the same. That didn't work. People didn't want that. People did want change, and you also have to acknowledge that a lot of people who voted for Obama went and voted for Trump, and it was because and obviously they're not the same politician, but they did both say that things were going to fundamentally change, and that's what people wanted.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that's a really, really good point. The fact that they both like harped on change was like a uniting factor of both of their campaigns, right?
Yeah.
I think we can talk really meaningfully about like the ways in which like sexism played into the 2016 campaign as well.
Yes.
Right. But I think like it would be like a real it would, be doing ourselves a disservice if we don't also appreciate the fact that like Clinton was a uniquely bad candidate for a number of reasons. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Very true.
People had like a lot of like very strong feelings about her, and like a number of which were justified, a number of which were not, and like based on conspiracy theories and all that other shit. But like a number of the criticisms of her, I think, are completely valid.
Totally, but the election was a repudiation of just like status quo neoliberal politics, right? Like people wanted, this, and I like, I'm sorry, this was like partly a failure of the Obama administration, right? I mean, like
Definitely.
they could have gotten single payer done. They could have. They didn't want to.
I mean, the thing is, like, the Obama administration, as much as any other administration, was like in the pocket of the big fossil fuel interests and the big healthcare interests.
Yeah.
And the big real estate interests.
Totally.
Banking, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, like.
They didn't prosecute any of the bankers.
No. Yeah, they didn't prosecute any of the bankers, but they did institute a drone war and prosecute journalists.
Yeah.
Like.
Totally.
Like it makes complete sense why people thought that was bullshit, because it was. But like what I will say is that in terms of like being in coalition with former Trump voters, I think that voting Trump in 2016 is very different than voting Trump in 2020.
Sure. Yeah.
Very true.
With that being said, I think that in the future, right, we have to like live in this country, right, and whatever happens in this country, probably more than half of the states are going to vote for Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people in those states, right? There are a lot of places where like, it's like fucked up, but it might be a more normalized thing to do. And like someone's 18 years old and they vote for Trump. I'm not saying, I'm not going to be in coalition with that person in like 8 years, right?
Right.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not willing to compromise. I don't think we should compromise. And I think that like part of bringing people to the left needs to be educating them about like racial justice issues and shit.
I don't think you have to compromise. I just think that there's room. I mean, like, and we should have like an episode on like cancel culture or something like that. But there's room for people to make mistakes, and we need to allow that.
Yes.
Because that's where education comes from.
Totally. Yeah. No. Yeah. Just to reiterate, and even. Like, I don't even want to call it like a coalition with Trump supporters. I'm talking about bringing former Trump supporters in, right? Or at least, or like you said, kind of educating people and making them understand why that wasn't even in their best interest, and why none of the xenophobia or the racism or the sexism, that's not in their best interest either, right? Like that's also involved in like kind of educating people and making sure that they understand that. Yeah.
I think that part of it too is that like when we talk about education, we're talking about education for Republicans and for Democrats, right? Mm-hmm. Because like thinking that like Joe Biden is going to do anything worthwhile or like save us or whatever.
That's why
he
like,
might that represents.
Sorry.
Like that. No, you're totally good. That in my mind that represents a like failure to understand like the material realities.
Absolutely,
of the situation,
and that's
right. Voting for Trump is the same, right? It's like you're misrecognizing the fight that is going on.
Totally. But the problem is that Trump is gonna say that he's gonna address those material realities, right? And that's a problem because Democrats aren't even willing to say that they're gonna do that, because it is
literally only a problem because Joe Biden refuses to endorse Medicare for all, which is a policy position that is advocated by 88% of the Democratic Party.
Dude, It's fucking
That is the only reason why it is even a little bit of a problem.
yeah.
Dude, Trump's gonna win. I'm like,
That
He might,
that's-
right? Because
I truly believe that he's gonna
that's
win.
Biden wants to get as close as he can to losing
Yeah.
and squeak by so that he doesn't have to be on the hook to actually fucking
and
do it.
he wants to
anything, yeah.
he wants to squeak by with the white suburban voters and not with the left, right? They would much
Yeah, and the white suburban voters are all going to QAnon.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Maybe he'll get into QAnon. Maybe that's the winning fucking strategy for the fucking
JAnon.
Democrats. Jesus. But no, yeah, and like kind of what I wanted to say though is that like people who, like you said, Justin, these are valid impulses. Being skeptical of power and of elites, that's a totally valid impulse. And people are turning to QAnon partly because they have a desire to find answers about those questions of power and like corruption. And
it gives them such an
Exactly.
easy in.
totally.
It does. And like people, I think part of this like really goes back to people's education, right?
Mhm.
People's experience in schools.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that a lot of people, especially if you go to a school that teaches like a very traditional sort of American exceptionalism type curriculum, like is explicitly on Trump's 2020 platform, which is a lot of schools in this country, right? They teach that like white people and indigenous peoples on this continent like coexisted and they just bought land and then they were friends, right?
Yeah.
Like they ate together and like right, like it teaches stuff like that. It teaches stuff about like the Alamo that is not critical of like the colonial past associated with that, right? And like there are all these things, right? Like missed teachings of the horrors of slavery and about like the like just cause of the Civil War and like other bullshit like neo-Confederate reimaginings like that, right? And people like they like internalize all of this shit, and then at some point they realize that a lot of it just isn't true at all, right? And a lot of the justifications, sort of neoliberal capitalist justifications, are actually complete bullshit, right? And they're left with pretty much like no way to orient themselves in the world, like intellectually, right? Like they have no like firm basis in any kind of knowledge that's going to like actually like be revolutionary for them.
Yeah.
Be like, something that will tell them like how to understand what is happening.
And like what's so interesting about this too is that like really for a lot of these people it's like QAnon is also very convenient, right? Because it kind of explains why Trump has yet to make America great again, like if,
he's doing his best,
right? Like if he could just get rid of the elite pedophile Democrats, then he would be able to get on with the project. And that's why now we got to do 4 more years, because we're going to get rid of the pedophile Democrats. He's going to have them all arrested.
It's like an episode of 24. It's like, totally. But he's just like constantly battling off like deep state, like pedo cabal members or whatever.
Which like, I gotta say is...
And unable to enact any legislation.
Which I do have to say, any like theory that anybody kind of concocts to suggest that Trump is like this moral, like this high moral authority is like, I'm even like, I can't even...
Already
it's
fucked. That's not where you should be basing this.
Like the shit that he said about like his daughter. Didn't he say shit about his daughter being like hot or something when she was like a teenager?
Oh yeah, he did, dude.
Dude, we could just saying that like sort of listing off all the fucking wild shit he said.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe we should just have like a couple of clips of him like saying weird shit here. That might be
totally. Good. Yeah, but I guess like again, like just like a problem with QAnon, other than obviously being like demonstrably false, right? Is that like they've got it's, and this is like the thing with any conspiracy theory, right? They've got all the focus is on evil individuals, right? And it's not, and there's no focus on systems where like corruption and exploitation are features instead of bugs, right? Like that's what we have now, and that's why I even kind of think with like the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, like moralizing about that kind of thing only gets you so far, right? Because like okay, yes, obviously Epstein and his associates were like horrible people, but if you don't address the underlying systemic problem where they have so much wealth and therefore so much power, where literally prosecutors are like looking the other way at what they do because of their influence,
They can just slide some money here and there.
it's like that's how it's going to continue, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, people are always going to take advantage of whatever situation they have.
Yeah. And that's why like what I had kind of said to my friend about of course Bill Gates having all that money is a problem, because that money allows him to live in a different world where he gets to do whatever he wants, and like, you know, and yeah, I don't know.
Rich people don't go to jail.
No, yeah, it's and
Really?
that's the thing, and people know that. Even the QAnon people know that, right? That's a true observation. They understand that like elites kind of operate with impunity in this country, and that's why like tackling something like this is so hard, because it offers like bullshit answers to questions that are actually like very, very important, right?
But it's also so weird because I don't understand where the disconnect is, because obviously, like we were saying, like they understand that these elites, like billionaires, millionaires, like they operate on like basically in a completely different universe from us. They're also so quick to defend these people.
Sure.
And like,
yeah, I know.
Just to defend like capitalism.
It's like a total contradiction, right? But it's nonetheless, here we are, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're taught to defend capitalism, like from the fucking get-go, right?
Yeah.
We like write essays in school about why capitalism is better than communism.
And that's why the Marjorie Taylor Greene quote is about the socialism is so great, right?
It's just fucking insane.
Yeah, because like we don't want to have socialism where like Jeffrey Epstein would have never had all that money and been able to get away with it, like doing an actual elite pedophile cabal for like however many years he was doing that, you know?
Yeah, totally. I think so. There's a really, really good point about this, and it was brought up by one of the hosts of Eat the Rich Pod, which is a great podcast. Definitely recommend. But he was saying that like there are like 1,000 problems, right, in like caused by capitalism, right? And like, you know, there's like two capitalist parties who are willing to argue about everything except for capitalism, right? So when something is a problem that like originates from something outside of capitalism, they can like, you know, definitely argue about like merits of policy related to that. But when something is like directly stemming from capitalism, it becomes this like weird culture war where they both have to pretend it's not about capitalism. It's actually about like what fucking car you drive, or
totally.
Dude, it's crazy.
You have a tote bag.
This can lead us into this kind of Li Fang Twitter controversy that we.
Oh yeah, this is very good.
That we probably
is
that is like sort of, I don't know. We'll talk about it. It's an interesting thread, right?
It's a little old.
It'll be.
I think. What do you say?
Oh, I was just say. I feel like it'll be a good end to the episode.
Yeah.
So I'll give a little brief intro to Li Fang, and sort of he's had some controversy recently. Like several months ago, he like intimated that Mehdi Hassan, who's another writer at The Intercept, who writes about like Islamophobia and stuff. It really seemed like he was intimating that he was opposed to Tulsi because Tulsi was Hindu and he is Muslim. So like, you know, Li Fang like definitely has some like reactionary tendencies, it seems like.
Right.
But he also caused controversy earlier this year when he recorded a bunch of interviews at protests and chose to like really amplify one where one protester was talking about the issue of black on black crime.
Right.
Which we know is just like another way to scapegoat black people for the issue of gun violence in America.
Definitely.
And it's another way to like attempt to discredit the protest movement.
Totally.
So like, you know, like that shit is not cool, right? So it's ultimately not that surprising that Li Fang would come out with a dynamite take like this, and I'll read it off right now. So this is from September 14th. And the quote is, "What motivates the ruling class is a routine desire for maintaining power and self-interest. but political storytellers need lurid, emotionally driven narratives, so the far left invents a white supremacist elite in charge of the country, just as the far right imagines a pedo cabal. Which,
God.
initial thoughts. What do y'all think?
Well, I've got thoughts because
I've got thoughts.
yeah.
Drop them, dude. Drop that shit.
So basically this thread was very I enjoyed reading through this thread. Basically, there's one part of his tweet that is like batshit total nonsense, right? Where he's basically equating the like idea or like construct of white supremacy as like a structural reality in the United States with this QAnon bullshit, right? They're not the same thing, and that's so obviously that's where I do not agree with him. Where
right off the bat, one is real, one is fake.
The part, yeah, exactly. The part that I did, the part that kind of drew me in was where he said what motivates the ruling class is a routine desire for maintaining power and self-interest. That
is very true.
That I 100% agreed with.
That's where Tyler got pilled.
That's where I got Fang pilled. No,
I think that there are a couple of points to this, right? And he goes on to like kind of explain this a little bit like further on too, I think. Kind of like further on like his perspective on like why he's saying that. I think that like one mistake that he's making right now is expecting that what motivates the ruling class, like that same greed and power and self-interest, is not tied up in white supremacy.
Totally. And someone asked, like, the top reply on the thread was
that's like the first question, isn't it?
Right. Well, no, actually, I maybe it's not the top. The top one that I saw anyway was like someone asked him like, basically, do you think that the elites use white supremacy as a means to achieve that?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And when he replied to that, he says yes, but that ultimately like the motive is still profit. Which, yeah, he's being dismissive of something that is a fucking reality that he for some reason is not willing to accept.
He's trying to reach a new level of wokeness.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, I think that like, so he goes on to say, let me like real quick.
Yeah, totally.
So Ida Chavez says, respectfully, Lee, I have a question. Do you not think the ruling class uses white supremacy and racism precisely out of its desire to maintain power and self-interest? Li Fang says, I do, but the motive is profit. The business interests in this country are happy to deploy cynical race culture war for political gain. That's why the same corporations that funded Donald Trump and Rep. Steve King also fund LGBT pride marches and the Congressional Black Caucus.
Sure.
Which, like, yeah, what were you saying?
And I know, Justin, we had this conversation already a little bit, but like where I agree is that I absolutely think that the elites would rather have the white supremacy conversation than the capitalist conversation, right? That capitalism is absolutely 100% woven in with white supremacy, and that any sort of attempt to address white supremacy that doesn't have any class component is just going to be is basically just going to be like moralizing or like, you know, showing people how much smarter you are. Right. That's
personal responsibility for ending fascism.
Yeah, totally. You know? Sure. Yeah. Not actually changing systems where like because we have actual systems that profit off of racism. Right. I mean, and like the private prison industry might be like the best example. Right. Like, and even a lot of these, a lot of the elite, like even Kamala Harris, she had that thing where it was like, yeah, well, we don't want to we can't get rid of the prison labor because who's going to fight the forest fires? Are you
what
a wild thing to say.
Yeah. No, I mean, Kamala is like not as responsible as Joe Biden for creating the prison industrial complex we see today, but she was very active participant.
Exactly.
In it, I would say.
Oh, huge.
Yeah, huge. And like one thing that I think that like kind of what you're getting at, Tyler, that I think is like important and accurate, and one thing that Li Fang gets right here is that people are going to cynically exploit like quote unquote identity politics
Precisely.
for their own purposes, right? For their own reactionary purposes. And like we do see this in part during Pride Month when companies that are like virulently anti-gay and anti-trans, right, will come out and like, you know, have like rainbow flags in their advertisements.
Yeah, they've got those like, filters on the fucking their like Twitter icon.
Capitalism.
It totally is.
It is, right? And it's like, you know, it's anything that claims to be anti-racist without also being anti-capitalist is a fucking lie. Exactly.
And that's exactly where Li Feng is. That's where I agreed with Li Feng, and part of why I enjoyed so much looking through this thread, because that is missing from so many people's from the analysis that a lot of people are doing, and frankly, the analysis that a lot of the elites are doing, right?
Of course.
You know, people on MSNBC, etc. And obviously the DNC was a perfect fucking showcase of that, right? Where like,
oh yeah, well, you don't want to change the status quo too much. I mean, all of them still rely on these systems to
and it's but exist. And even it's not even we're not even going to change the status quo really at all, right? That's what it is. No. It's like
we're not even going to take it back to before Trump.
Yeah. Where all the same issues where you had systemic racism were still there. All of them, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, they have all gotten worse as well.
The police were still...
We're not even willing to go back to a time before they were getting worse as quickly as they are.
Yeah. It's... Yeah.
I want to like kind of wrap up this Li Feng conversation with this last tweet and his like chat with Ryan Grimm, who was like spitting some like really good facts, I would say. Brian Grimm says, building that identity was necessary for the maintenance of race-based chattel slavery and was an effort to collapse the competing identities of Catholic and Protestant, English, Irish, Scottish, Spanish, Italian, German, etc., into one that could be a political force. Talking about whiteness and talking about like how whiteness is wrapped up in this like business elite.
Totally.
Li Feng says, deploying resentment around identity is still a common strategy of the elite, but no evidence of a white supremacist agenda among the Fortune 500.
Yeah, no, he was...
If anything, it's advantageous to be cynically pro-diversity if it means less focus on inequality and corporate accountability. What do you think, TJ?
I mean, I feel like I kind of see where he's going, but I think it still misses the mark.
That's the thing, yeah. Though there's like things, there's little things in there that I agree with, and then there's things where it's just like, no, he's wrong. And obviously, like I already said, where he's wrong is all the parts where he's basically dismissing or denying the clear existence of like white supremacist based like power structures in this country.
Yeah, I don't know why he refused to like, acknowledge that.
That's a weird like yes, be critical of identity politics when it's being used in disingenuous ways, right? I'm all
which it happened like we talked about on the last episode.
Exactly.
That happens
yes, definitely
more and more frequently.
Yeah, I'm all for that, but don't like you can't just deny fucking like clear power structure
in the Fortune 500.
Also, that's like a weird like distinction that he made, which is like absolutely just like not true.
Yeah,
it's false. It's just like patently false. Like,
yeah,
but it's weird. It's very similar. Like,
yeah,
like he said that so specific.
It is right, and in some ways, it's like very similar to the what we were talking about last week about like the like Black Wall Street execs and lobbyists don't want Biden to like
exclude them
in the interest of diversity, right? We cannot exclude lobbyists and former Wall Street executives.
That's where you need to be critical of that. And like frankly, I do think that there are some people who are like too sensitive to even like go there, right? And that is a problem. I really do like that is a serious problem. They're
like where you're not allowed to criticize any sort of like left-wing identity politics.
Yeah, that's a problem, I think.
Totally.
That kind of stuff needs to be called out. And yeah, like I said last week, like,
well, I think
like I said last week, those like, you know, the members of the the Congressional Black Caucus and people on K Street, they are part of the elite, right? They are collaborating, and like it's beneficial for them because they benefit from, you know, power and wealth, and then it's beneficial for the elite because the elite gets to appear woke, right? And that's like important. That's a very important thing, especially now.
And that's the perfect example of like what happens when you create a culture where you're not allowed to critique certain ideas.
I agree. Yeah, totally.
So I think so. We'll definitely get into a larger conversation around like cancel culture and stuff, like at some other point. I think we have a plan to do that.
I hope I get canceled on the pod.
No, I'm gonna cancel the shit out of you, TJ.
It's fine.
But
if you cancel me, I'm gonna red pill myself.
You can't cancel me. I'll cancel myself. I mean, like I'll just say in general, I think that like the extent to which cancel culture is really a problem, in my opinion, is overblown. But like I definitely get that like there are issues with people who are not the furthest left in most cases attempting to cynically exploit like identity politics for like capitalist gains, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like I think that is a thing, but I think that is different from cancel culture, you know?
Sure.
We'll talk about it on another episode.
Sure. Okay.
Because totally. I think that'll be, I mean, I know that me and Tyler have had that discussion before, so it'll be a good one.
It'll be an interesting one to have.
It will be. Yeah.
In short, Lee Fang, if you want to come on the pod and defend yourself, you're always welcome.
If you want to come on the pod and just get absolutely fucking smoked, you're more than welcome.
If you want to get roasted on the pod, please.
That's also just like
we'll be nice. Lee Fang will be nice.
Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
Lee Fang will be nice. I promise.
You know what, though?
I was going to say, honestly, I'm going to open it up to anybody that has listened to this pod. If you want to come on and get smoked, you can.
Or just have a conversation.
We'll gladly smoke
I'm down.
Fools.
Yeah, anybody who wants to. I was just going to say, though, honestly, Lee Fang doesn't need to come on the pod because I think Ryan Grimm, like you kind of said, Justin, like Ryan Grimm set it straight.
Yeah, we're having Ryan Grimm on.
Ryan Grimm totally set it straight. And like, I kind of think Lee Fang even knew, like at that point, like Ryan, he knew what was up. And like, he kind of like synthesized all the right, like ideas and like criticisms, etc. And like, he came up with the ultimately the
smoke. He just smoked.
He did a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, it was a polite.
It was like a celebrity death match.
Polite smoking.
Totally.
Celebrity death match.
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap this up, I want to remind all of the sheeple to please follow us on our Twitter. Right, we've got at Sheeple's Army Pod on Twitter. What do we got on Instagram, you guys?
At Sheeple's Army.
At Sheeple's Army on Instagram. And you can please, if you're listening on Apple or iTunes on podcasts, please leave a review, subscribe, and then similarly with Spotify, please hit that follow button, right? I don't know if there's like a review mechanism on there. Do you guys know?
I don't think there is.
On Spotify, there's no review mechanism.
Okay. Just hit the follow.
Following us. Mm-hmm. Following us on either platform and especially leaving a review on Apple Podcasts helps new people find the show. So it's super helpful for us if you can do that.
Definitely.
And hit that 5-star
I think
rating.
we have hit that 5-star rating.
Yep.
You know, unless you want to hit the 4-star and then like upgrade to a 5-star when we respond to you with like a nice picture or something.
Anybody that leaves a bad review is getting smoked.
And I just want to say too, we have YouTube presence now. We have episode 1 is up, and I think episode 2 will be up soon as well.
Yeah.
If you search Sheeple's Army Podcast on YouTube, if that's your thing. I know some people like to just click that YouTube link and listen. We've got a very visually pleasing little video too, and it's very nice to look at, and that's another place to find Sheeple's Army. Anything else, you guys?
Also, I want to give a quick shout out to some of the people we've been interacting with on Twitter. Y'all have been really cool. If you're listening to this pod and you found us on Twitter, thank you for the love and actually for listening to this entire damn thing.
Yes.
You guys are absolutely crushing it on Twitter. How many followers do we have?
We got, let's see, 610.
We only have 4 on Instagram, so I'm like not doing so hot.
Yeah. For the love of God, follow us on Instagram, please.
Totally. Thank you so much. And we will be, I'm just going to say, we'll be able to talk about this on Monday's episode, but it won't be out. So I will need to talk about this now because we will be doing live presidential debate coverage via Twitch. So it's going to be fun, and it's going to be the first time. I know it's going to be the first time any of us have ever done anything like that. And so we'll be posting the link on social media. It should just be like a Twitch thing, and we will be doing live coverage on September 29th. I believe it's fuck guys, what time is it? I believe it's in the evening at some point. I should have checked. Sorry, but it's an hour and a half long, and we will be riffing. We will be joking. Maybe we'll be doing.
I will not be joking.
Justin won't be joking, but I might.
Maybe we'll be drinking.
TJ will probably be drinking. Yeah. Maybe
I'll definitely be drinking.
Maybe we'll do. We might even do impressions. We might do fun things like that. Who knows what we'll do? Maybe we
Definitely.
might
Listen,
read
Jack.
some mail. Even who knows? Some hate mail.
Oh, if we get hate mail, or if we get like fan mail, send it our way. We would love to read it.
We got hate mail today actually, so we might even read a little bit of that. Who knows?
Fuck yeah. The debate starts at 6 o'clock Pacific
Thank you,
time.
Justin. 6 o'clock Pacific time. Sheeple's Army will be covering. Cool, and we will see everybody.
Wake up, sheeple.
Next week.